Once upon a time, a fragile clay pot and a strong iron pot floated down a river together. But when danger came, which one do you think broke? Let's find out. One sunny day, a clay pot and an iron pot were being transported on a raft down a wide and lazy river. It was going to be a long journey, so they had plenty of time to talk. The clay pot was rather anxious about the trip. He was a humble pot, carefully crafted by a skilled potter. But he knew that his elegant shape and thin walls made him very fragile. As they floated along, the clay pot saw the iron pot and started worrying. It was massive, almost like a huge cauldron, with thick, strong walls that seemed to be able to withstand anything. And sure enough, the iron pot was laughing loudly, boasting about its power. "Oh, how weak you are," the iron pot taunted the clay pot. "A little bump or scrape could make you shatter into pieces." The clay pot shuddered. "Please, stay away from me," he begged. "You are so strong and heavy, but I am fragile and weak. If we bump into each other, I will surely break." "Don't worry," the iron pot laughed proudly. "Don't worry, I am strong. I can protect you." The two pots continued their journey down the river in silence for a while. As they floated past shady trees and bushes, the clay pot felt a glimmer of hope that maybe the iron pot was right and they could travel together without any problems. But unfortunately, that peace didn't last long. Suddenly, the wind shifted and the clay pot could feel the raft starting to move faster. Before he knew what was happening, the water around him began to churn and turn, and he found himself bumping and grinding against the rough walls of the iron pot. The river had become wild and dangerous. The clay pot cried out in fear. "I told you we shouldn't be together. Now I'm going to break, and there will be nothing you can do to stop it." The iron pot snarled back. "Just hold still. You're not as weak as you think. Maybe I should have left you on the bank. Now we're both in danger." The water grew wilder and more violent. Waves crashed over the raft, threatening to swallow it whole. And then, wham! A large wave tossed the iron pot, and crash, it slammed into the clay pot. The force of the impact sent shards flying. The clay pot couldn't take the strong iron's mighty blow, and his body shattered into hundreds of tiny pieces. The poor clay pot was broken. Meanwhile, the iron pot, though dented and scratched, was still intact. It floated on, battered but unbroken. The water eventually calmed down, and the sun peeked through the clouds. Again, the iron pot continued its journey downstream, but it wasn't the same. Its loud laughter was gone, replaced by a deep silence. It realized that all its strength hadn't saved it from being hurt. In fact, its strength had caused the accident, hurting someone who couldn't defend itself. It took the iron pot many days to reach its destination, and by the time it did, it was scratched, dented, leaking, and most importantly, empty. The iron pot had been so focused on its own strength and importance that it had failed to see the value in a humble clay pot. It had pushed the weak clay pot away instead of protecting it, and now it had paid the price. As the iron pot sat on the riverbank, broken and alone, it remembered the words the clay pot had spoken before they set off on their journey. "If we bump into each other, I will surely break." At that moment, the iron pot understood the truth of those words. It was so strong that it had never learned to be careful. And because it was so big and heavy, it had hurt many things that were smaller and weaker than it. The iron pot had been too proud to learn from others, but now it was too late. The clay pot was gone and the iron pot was broken. Now, you might think that the moral of this story is that being weak is bad, right? That the clay pot deserved to break because it was too weak to handle the journey. But that's not what this story is about. You see, the clay pot wasn't weak. It just wasn't strong like the iron pot. And there's nothing wrong with that. Everyone is different and has different strengths. The clay pot was beautiful and useful in its own way. It was good at holding liquids, and it looked nice doing it. The iron pot couldn't do either of those things as well as the clay pot could. This story isn't about the strengths or weaknesses of the pots. It's about being too proud to work together. The iron pot was so proud of its strength that it didn't listen to the clay pot's warnings. It thought it was too good to care about a weak little thing like a clay pot. But the iron pot was wrong. The clay pot wasn't just a weak thing. It was a friend. And the iron pot had hurt its friend because of its pride. Sometimes being too strong isn't a good thing. It can hurt people who can't defend themselves, and it can even break friendships. If the iron pot had listened to the clay pot, they might have both reached their destinations safely. So remember, no matter how strong you are, you can't always do whatever you want. You also need to be humble and kind. Don't push away those who are different from you or think they're weaker than you. And don't be too proud to learn from anyone. A little kindness and understanding can go a long way. And that's the end of our story. Do you think the iron pot could have done anything to prevent breaking the clay pot? How would you have acted if you were the clay pot? Share your thoughts below. And don't forget to subscribe for more fun stories every week.